few years ago, I went to my very first escape room, and like a lot of folks, I was immediately hooked. I had never experienced anything like it before, and after 60 minutes of puzzle solving with friends in an immersive locked room experience, I was sure that this was going to be the next big thing. And it was. Over the next few years, the number of escape rooms across the world exploded, and now it's not that uncommon to find a handful of different escape room businesses, even in a small town like mine. But as more businesses have popped up and I travel around the country and get chances to play them, I'm starting to notice escape rooms, they're like bad now. Let me explain. So, if you're unfamiliar, escape rooms are real-world interactive puzzle games where a group works together in a timed challenge to escape a locked room. Along the way, they'll discover clues and solve challenges, complete missions, and experience a sort of interactive theater. At least that's how they're supposed to work. These days, it's kind of hit or miss. It's not that escape rooms have lost their novelty. I actually think this is more of an oversaturation and over-commercialization issue. It's the Starbucks problem. A small business that did something really well, but has since scaled up to such a great extent that the quality of the product offered has to be lowered, either to meet the demand or to beat the competition with a more appealing price. So escape rooms have gone from being a premium $60 experience to low-quality $30 experiences. When escape rooms first started out, the owners were generally gaming enthusiasts that built custom rooms for specific locations, but escape rooms have franchises now. Anybody with 500 square feet and enough money for a basic game kit can start one, even if you have no game design experience at all. And if you play enough of them, you'll start to notice the sort of paint-by-numbers approach that most escape room businesses have adopted. It's not that uncommon to find a puzzle room in one part of the country being used in another part of the country with no real variation because it's literally the same game from the same supplier, just deployed in a different physical location. But the problem goes way beyond just cheapo cookie-cutter puzzles. Out-of-the-box options make it so easy to open up shop that business owners, they often jump into the escape room business with a total lack of understanding on how to operate these games properly. Running an escape room well is incredibly challenging, and often it takes just one bad experience for a person to write the hobby off altogether. And there's a real danger in the overabundance of bad escape rooms poisoning the well, so to speak, for good escape rooms. So what's a bad room like? Here are some common issues with escape rooms today that frustrate me to no end, and specifically how I might go about fixing them. Cliché rooms. I just mentioned the carbon copy games found in a lot of franchise locations, but by extension, escape rooms are starting to suffer from sort of stale formulas. If you've gone to one recently, you've probably run into a few of these. Practically every business that I have ever visited has the exact same set of themes. There's a murder mystery room, an asylum setting, pirates, usually a ghost or haunted mansion. These are all fine, but they start to get old real fast. If you're gonna use a pre-made room, mix it up a little bit. Throw a creative spin on it. Like if it's just a generic ghost hunting room, try changing the characters or the storyline a little bit so it's about some kind of, I don't know, local legend specific to your location. Combine off-the-rack challenges, or create multiple stages within them. Even something simple like just reskinning an old puzzle with a new theme can help keep the experience fresh. Boring rooms. Lots of times that I go to escape rooms, I walk through the door and I am like immediately let down by the lack of production value. One of the first times I ever went to an escape room, it had this train station theme. The mission was that we had to search through a bunch of like luggage and suitcases to find some rare artifact from a world-renowned treasure hunter. The poster outside of the room looked really cool, but when we walked in, it was an office. White walls, totally undecorated, huge red stickers placed around power outlets to make sure that we didn't electrocute ourselves. Needless to say, I did not feel immersed. Even something simple like putting up train station wallpaper would have helped. Look, I get that businesses have budgetary restrictions, but if my group is gonna shell out $300 to be there, can't you make the room just a bit more interesting to look at? A good solution is to just work within your limits. Like, if you don't have the props and set dressing to pull off a spaceship theme, don't do it. If your physical building just looks like a generic office, come up with a story that matches that. Or use simple tricks like relighting your room to give the game a better atmosphere. When designing a room, you should ask, does this set dressing take me out of the experience, or does it help to immerse me? I wish escape rooms these days would go the extra mile to make their rooms memorable, or at least charge me less. Rooms that make no sense. Your room's theme and storyline should be logical. I played a room before where my partners and I were supposed to be FBI investigators who managed to sneak into a serial killer's cabin in search of evidence. But in order to get to that evidence, we had to go through this series of totally convoluted puzzles that no serial killer would realistically have employed at their private residence. So to unlock the door to the kitchen, we've got to use a code found in a cell phone that's tucked away in a locked bedside dresser, whose combination is found by looking at a stopped clock's reflection from a mirror across the room. Who organizes their house like that? Look, I get that a certain level of suspension of disbelief is called upon for players to use, but if I am a prisoner locked in a jail cell, why are the sheriffs leaving the key in a lockbox on a counter that can be opened by using a collapsible pole tucked under my bed to type out a number code found in a framed word puzzle on a writing desk in my cell? What? You and your friends are trapped in a bank vault, and the combination can only be found by looking through clues and solving puzzles contained in over a dozen different safety deposit boxes? What bank designs a failsafe like that? These plots make no sense. Some rooms elect to lampshade these hypotheticals and they just play it for laughs, or even better yet, they create characters to try and justify these kind of weird design choices, like maybe the villain is the Riddler, or some character that's obsessed with puzzles, or a famous cryptographer that's hiding some big discovery. These narrative fixes, they sort of work, but they make a lot of the themes feel one-dimensional. The plot underpinning the puzzles needs to make sense. Scenarios need to feel plausible to some extent. A lot of the times the storylines just kind of feel like flimsy excuses to lock people together in a room and have them solve puzzles. Which brings me to a huge pet peeve, and that is puzzles that betray the narrative. Does the puzzle feel like it belongs in the room? The world of the room, it needs like an internal logic. To me, puzzles shouldn't feel like they were created by somebody outside of the world. The biggest giveaway to me that a room is going to be lackluster when I walk into it is when I look and I see that the locks don't match the theme. Nothing makes me roll my eyes as a player more than walking into a pirate-themed room and seeing a bright, neon-colored word combination lock. What is that doing there? If we are in ancient Egypt, the coffin that I'm trying to open should not have a high school gym locker on it. Obviously, right? Your locks and your puzzles need to make sense in the environment. Why am I doing a Morse code challenge in a fantasy Middle-earth setting? Morse code doesn't exist in a world that doesn't have electricity. Astronauts don't have to win Simon Says to access their piloting systems. Ancient Egyptians would not use English word puzzles, especially not on laminated computer paper. So the fix is that when designing puzzles, be sure that they make sense in the environment. Objects in the room and reasons for encoding them, they need to feel natural to the world. And while some imagination is necessary on the part of the player, I don't know, shell out $10 more for a period-appropriate lock, right? Bad puzzles. I can't stand bad puzzles. A good puzzle will tell you in its design how it can be solved. Bad puzzles just kind of make you fend for yourself. Players need to be given all the tools necessary to solve a particular puzzle within the room. I see escape rooms that break this rule all the time. Any kind of puzzle that requires knowledge of concepts outside of the room is bad. This includes any puzzles that are based on things like pop culture, math, literature, or history. Anything like crosswords, trivia puzzles, Rubik's Cubes, chess challenges, these are bad puzzles because they're inaccessible for a lot of players. They contain concepts and require learning curves that players, they simply don't have time for. Stop doing Morse code puzzles. It doesn't matter if you put the key in the room, they're just annoying. For your code word lock, don't do an obscure Alice in Wonderland reference because not everybody has read it or will understand it. Not everybody knows the rules to chess, so don't make a game-critical puzzle where they have to find the right move on a chessboard to advance. Your goal as a game designer isn't to stump the players, it's to provide an entertaining and fulfilling experience. Color puzzles should be avoided because colorblind players can't solve them. Sudoku puzzles should be avoided because not everyone can do math. Speaking of numbers, counting puzzles. Don't do them. If you have a 3-digit lock in your room, and you decide to make a player count 147 stars on a wall to solve it, your room is really bad. Puzzles like that aren't challenging, they're time wasters. They aren't fun, they don't make me feel clever for solving them, and they just mess up a room's pacing. Speaking of which, rooms with poor pacing. So when playing games, there's this concept called flow. It's the sweet spot between feeling bored and feeling overwhelmed. Nobody likes rooms where the puzzles are way too easy and you just cruise through them, but people also don't like puzzles that are so complicated that they spend the entire time stuck. So good escape rooms should keep players in this flow state by progressively getting more challenging as they get closer to the end. You want to design a room with Goldilocks pacing, something that's not too hard but not too boring. And it's going to be hard to ensure your room's overall puzzle map maintains this. So about puzzle maps. When you're building an escape room, you first have to map out how the game is going to be played. If you get this step wrong, it doesn't matter how cool the decorations are, the room won't work. Good escape rooms have multiple puzzles that multiple players can work on at once so that everybody contributes as the team progresses. Ever been to an escape room where you can imagine the puzzle map looked like this? You found a key, used it on a lock, found another key, used it on a lock, found another key, and used it in a lock, and after about 60 minutes of that, you finally found the last key, which helped you escape the room. Probably wasn't very stimulating. Linear puzzles can feel boring, and they often bottleneck the room's flow, because if there's only one puzzle to solve at a time, most players just end up standing around and watching one person try to solve it. Rooms with parallel puzzles make sure that multiple players are doing important things at once, letting everyone participate and contribute to the end goal. Of course, a game's flow can be tweaked by the person operating things behind the scenes. So oftentimes the key to this is to have a good game master. Bad game masters. My two worst escape room experiences were both game master related. The first one, my wife and I were in this room and we were trying to solve this puzzle. It was a water challenge, which by the way are totally inconsistent and should really never be used in escape rooms, but I digress. We're paying like $120 to have this 60-minute experience, and about 15 minutes in, we get totally stuck on this water puzzle. The thing is, at the very start, the game master says you get 3 hints. If you're stuck on a puzzle, look at the camera in the room and say, "We need a hint. I'll send one your way." So since we're stuck, we look at the camera and we say, "We need a hint," and nothing happens. So we messed around for like 10 more minutes trying to figure out this puzzle. We still can't do it, so we shout out even louder, "We need a hint." Still nothing happens. We keep working at it. Of course, at this point, we're starting to fight with each other. A couple more minutes pass, my wife finally just shouts out super loud, "We need a hint." And finally, the TV screen in the room blinks on, and there is a hint for a puzzle that we had already solved earlier. There's a thing in the corner of the screen that shows how many hints you have, and it's like, boop, 2 left. We're like, we've already solved that. We're on this one. We need help. Please, anything to do with this puzzle. A few minutes later, boop, finally get another hint. And it's for another puzzle that we had already solved. Now my wife and I are really going at it with each other. We're both just standing there staring at the countdown clock, watching our money waste away. Nobody seems to be actually watching the room and tracking our progress. Long story short, when there's like 10 minutes left, the game master finally helps us. The door to the room opens up. The game master, she sticks her head in and she's like, "If you want to play this room, you have to hold the button instead of pressing it." And then she just shuts the door. wow, we're having fun. Obviously, we fail the room. We get out into the lobby and come to find out this girl is like trying to game master 5 rooms at the same time, and she just like wasn't paying attention to our room at all. We paid to have that experience. So clearly an example of a game master that is not helping enough. The second bad escape room experience was the complete opposite in that the game master was helping us way too much. We pretty quickly figured out the first puzzle. We popped the lock, we open it up, and we pulled out this object. We start looking around it to see what we need to do. A game master comes over the intercom and she goes, so for that one, you're gonna want to find the lock that's right there under that shelf and then put that in, and then you're gonna want to find the code that's on the wall there. And we're like, oh, okay. So we do that and we get to the next stage of the puzzle. We pull out this magnet. Ooh, a magnet. I wonder what this could possibly go to. So that magnet, it goes on the peacock painting right behind you, and that'll give you the key to the dresser. Oh, okay. So we escaped the room in record time, but it was like, we didn't get to play. She didn't even give us time to try anything. It was not enjoyable. If escape rooms are going to survive as businesses, they've got to get this part right. If your game master is having to juggle 4 or 5 different rooms at once, this is a sign that your business needs to hire more help. If on the other hand, your game master is spoiling everything, then they need to be retrained. Just some stuff to think about. I don't know. This whole thing's probably coming off super whiny. Look, again, I don't want to seem too critical. This is not a knock on escape room owners. I've talked with people who run these experiences, and it is incredibly challenging. It's hard to do well, but by the same token, it's also incredibly easy to do it poorly. I really love escape rooms. You know, if you've got a good one, then you're gonna have a ton of fun. But I worry that the more popular these things become, the lower standards that operators of rooms will have. And by extension, players' expectations will be low too. Anyway, that's my rant. Just thinking out loud. So what's the worst escape room experience that you've had? And how would you fix it? Let me know in the comments. Also, build a website? This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website. With no hidden fees, Squarespace makes it simple to get set up. Start from one of their beautiful templates and then customize it to your specific needs. They offer video and audio blocks to help jumpstart the aspiring podcaster or videographer, and with simultaneous posting, they let you get your message across multiple platforms all at once. If you want to start an online business, Squarespace lets you easily set up an online storefront. You can try it all out for free at squarespace.com. If you like the experience, then head over to squarespace.com/AustinMcConnell to launch your site and save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain.